Welcome, everyone. We are live tonight. Oh, yes, we are. Where's my fern? There it is. Oh, it's not a fern, but it's my ivy. It's beautiful. Um, let's get over to the book. I trust everyone had a good day today, and I trust that you were productive and that you learned a lot today, and and that you practiced the principles. I trust that's what you did. Now, we were continuing. We are on The Law and the Promise, chapter 12. I don't remember how many chapters are in this book. We'll go till we're done. So we'll read one chapter tonight, chapter 12. Hey, Cyber. So, chapter 12, Attitudes. Mental things are alone real, what is called corporeal. Nobody knows of its dwelling place. It is in fallacy and its existence an impostor. Where is the existence out of mind or thought? Where is it but in the mind of a fool? Oh, William Blake. Mental things are alone real, what is called corporeal. Now, the corporeal soul is affiliated with the lungs in traditional Chinese medicine, the outermost part, the stuff that is, you feel the most, corporeal. It says, nobody knows of its dwelling place. It is in fallacy and its existence an impostor. Where is the existence out of mind or thought? Where is it but in the mind of a fool? So, in other words, they say that the foolish are imaginative, but all people are imaginative. If the fool would continue in his folly, he'd become wise. Ah, I digress. Memory, though faulty, is adequate to the call for sameness. What do I tell you every day? Every day we read this. Memory, though faulty, is adequate to the call for sameness. So you have the memory, you relive the same experience. Memory is adequate to the call for sameness. If we remember another as we have known him, we recreate him in that image, and the past will be recognized in the present. Imagining creates reality. If there is room for improvement, we should reconstruct him with new content. Visualize him as we would like him to be, rather than have him bear the burden of our memory of him. Everything possible to be believed is an image of truth. What? Everything possible to be believed is an image of truth. Now, the following story is by one who believes that imagining creates reality, and acting on this belief changed his attitude towards a stranger and bore witness to this change in reality. Buckle up, Buttercup. He says, more than 20 years ago, when I was a green farm boy, newly arrived in Boston to attend school, a panhandler asked me for money for a meal. Although the money I had was pitifully insufficient for my own needs, I gave him what was in my pocket. A few hours later, the same man, by this time staggering drunk, stopped me again and asked for money. I was so outraged. I was so outraged to think the money I could so ill afford had been put to such use. I made myself a solemn pledge that I would never again listen to the plea of a street beggar. Through the years, I kept my pledge, but every time I refused anyone, my conscience needled me. I felt guilty even to the point of developing a sharp pain in my stomach, but I couldn't bring myself to unbend. The early part of this year, a man stopped me as I was walking my dog and asked for money so he could eat. True to the pledge, I refused him. His manner was gracious as he accepted my refusal. He even admired my dog and spoke of a family in New York State he knew that raised Cocker Spaniels. This time, my conscience was really pricking me. As he went on his way, I determined to remake that scene as I wished it had been. So I stopped right there on the street, closed my eyes for only a few moments, and enacted the scene differently. In my imagination, I had the same man approach me. Only this time he opened the conversation by admiring my dog. After we had talked a moment, I had him say, because remember, he's enacting it now. So in his imagination, he had him say, I don't like to ask you this, but I really need something to eat. I have a job that begins tomorrow morning, but I've been out of work and tonight I'm hungry. I then reached into my imaginary pocket, pulled out an imaginary $5 bill, and gladly gave it to him. This imaginal act immediately dissolved the guilty feeling and the pain. I know from your teaching, Neville, that an imaginal act is fact. So I knew I could grant anyone what he asked, and by faith in the imaginal act, consent to the reality of his having it. 4 months later, as I was again walking my dog, the same man approached me and opened the conversation by admiring my dog. He says, Oh, well, here's a beautiful dog, he said. Young man, I don't suppose you remember me, but a while back, I asked you for some money and you very kindly said no. I say kindly because if you had given it to me, I would still be asking for money. Oh. Instead, I got a job that very next morning, and now I'm on my feet and have some self respect again. I knew his job was a fact when I imagined it that night some 4 months ago. But I won't deny there was immense satisfaction in having him appear in the flesh to confirm it. Signed by F.B. Here's my one of my favorite scriptures. Silver and gold have I not, but such as I have I give unto you. Acts 3, verse 6. None is to be discarded. All must be saved, beloved love troll. And our imagination, reshaping memory, is the process whereby this salvation is brought to pass. To condemn the man for having lost his way is to punish the already punished. Oh, whom should I pity if I pity not the sinner who has gone astray? Not what the man was, but what he may become should be our imaginal activity. Uh-oh, say it again. Not what the man was, but what he may become should be our imaginal activity. Don't you remember Sweet Alice? Ben Bolt, sweet Alice, whose hair was so brown, who wept with delight when you gave her a smile and trembled with fear at your frown. If we imagine no worse of him than he of himself, he would pass as excellent. What was that? If we imagine no worse of him than he of himself, well, he would pass as excellent. It's not the man at his best, but the imaginist exercising the spirit of forgiveness that performs the miracle. It's not the man at his best, but the imaginist exercising the spirit of forgiveness that performs the miracle. Imagining with new content transformed both the man who asked and the man who gave. Imagining has not yet had its due in the systems either of moralists or educators. When it does, there will be the opening of the prison to those who are bound. Nothing has existence for us save through the memory we have of it. Nothing has existence for us save through the memory we have of it. Therefore, we should remember it not as it was, unless, of course, it was altogether desirable, but we should imagine as we desire it to be. In so much as imagining is creative, our memory of another either furthers or hinders him and makes his upward or downward way easier and swifter. There is no coal of character so dead that it will not glow and flame if but slightly turned. Now, the following story shows that imagining can make rings and husbands and move people to China. Hold on, because here's the story. She says, Neville, my husband, child of a broken home and raised by beloved grandparents, was never close to his mother, nor she to him. A woman of 63 and a divorcee for 32 of those years, was lonely and embittered, and my relationship with her was strained as I attempted to stay in the middle. Now, by her own admission, her great desire was to remarry for companionship, but she believed this to be impossible at her age. My husband would often state to me that he hoped she would remarry, and he fervently put it, perhaps, live way out of town. Ooh. Now, I had the same wish, and as I put it, perhaps move to China. Well, being wary of my personal motive for this wish, I knew I must change my feeling toward her in my imaginal drama, and at the same time give her what she wanted. I began by seeing her in my imagination as a completely changed personality, a happy, joyous woman, secure and contented in a new relationship. Every time I thought of her, I would see her mentally as a new woman. About 3 weeks later, she came to our house for a visit, bringing a friend she had met many months previously. The man had recently become a widower. He was her age, secure financially, and had grown children and grandchildren. Now, we liked him, and I was excited because it was obvious they liked each other. But my husband still thought it was impossible. I didn't. And from that day on, every time her image rose in my mind, I saw her extending her left hand toward me, and I admired the ring on her finger. Listen, you know how a newly engaged woman is? She's like, hey, how you doing? She leaned into the left because the ring is so heavy and she wants you to see it. That is how she imagined her. Ooh. So she said, from that day on, every time I saw her image in my mind, I saw her extending her left hand toward me, and I admired the ring on her finger. 1 month later, she and her friend came to visit us, and I walked forward to greet them. And she proudly extended her left hand. The ring was on her finger. Hello? 2 weeks later, she was married, and we haven't seen her since. She lives in a brand new home way out of town. And as her new husband dislikes the long drive to our house, she might as well have moved to China. Written by J.B. Listen, there is a wide difference between the will to resist an activity and the decision to change it. Angela, you got to say it again. There is a wide difference between the will to resist an activity and the decision to change it. He who changes an activity acts, whereas he who resists an activity reacts. Oh, you got to say it again. When I say it again, I want you to imagine your life and see where you react, and see where you resist doing something, and see where you've made a decision to change. Pay attention and you'll see it. Listen. There is a wide difference between the will to resist an activity and the decision to change it. He who changes an activity acts, whereas he who resists an activity reacts. One creates, the other perpetuates. Ooh. Let me give you an example. You say, I won't smoke, I won't drink anymore, I won't do the drugs anymore, I'ma stop. And every day you get up, you resist the urge to give into it. You resist. But what if you got up and you said, I'm done? You just made a decision. You said, I'm done with that. That is not me anymore. I am done. Wash my hands. I am done with that. You see, one of those two activities creates, and the other perpetuates. When you create, you made a decision. And when you made that decision, there's a change within you first. But this is what it is. Uh, if you've ever done anything cold turkey, they didn't fight, right? They just made a decision and they said, I'm done. I'm done. But they didn't make the decision from a place of fighting. They just said, you know what? That's not for me. I'm done. And because they made that decision internally, externally, they created their own freedom. But you see, when we resist an activity, we push against it. Doing what? We're looking squarely at it. So, because we're looking squarely at it and it has our attention, you must perpetually do the same thing you've always done. But when you turn, because this is literally what's happening to you, when you turn with a new attitude towards that new decision that you've made, well, are you not looking at something new? Are you not behaving in a new fashion? Well, then voila, you've changed. You must do the new thing. So you've created your freedom versus perpetuating your captivity by pushing against and resisting the change. Oh, let us carry on. Nothing is real beyond the imaginative patterns we make of it. How? Memory, no less than desire, resembles a daydream. Why make it a daymare? Man can forgive only if he treats memory as a daydream and shapes it to his heart's desire. Now, RK learned that we may rob others of their abilities by our attitudes toward them. How did he learn it? It says he changed his attitude and thereby changed a fact. Here's what RK says. Neville, I'm not a moneylender, nor am I in the investment business as such. But a friend and business acquaintance came to me for a substantial loan in order to expand his plant. Because of personal friendship, I granted the loan with reasonable interest rates and gave my friend the right of renewal at the end of 1 year. When the first year term expired, he was behind in his interest payments and requested a 30-day extension on the note. I granted his request. But at the end of 30 days, he was still unable to meet the note and asked for an additional extension. Now, as I previously stated, Neville, I am not in the business of lending money. Within 20 days, I needed full payment of the loan to meet debts of my own. But I consented again to extend the note, although my own credit was now in serious jeopardy. The natural thing to do was to apply legal pressure to collect. And a few years ago, I would have done just that. Instead, I remembered your warning not to rob others of their ability. And I realized that I had been robbing my friend of his ability to pay what he owed. Well, how? Now he says, how? Because he saw him as never being able to pay it back, and that's why he had to keep extending it. But here's what he did. He said, for 3 nights, I constructed a scene in my imagination in which I heard my friend tell me that unexpected orders had flooded his desk so rapidly he was now able to pay the loan in full. The fourth day, I received a telephone call from him. He told me that by what he called a miracle, He had received so many orders, and big ones too, he was now able to pay back my loan, including all interest due, and in fact had just mailed a check to me for the entire amount. Written by RK. Listen, there is nothing more fundamental to the secret of imagining than the distinction between imagining and the state imagined. Huh? Mental things are alone real. Everything possible to be believed is an image of truth. Now, why are mental things alone real? Because the all is mind. The universe is a mental creation. That is why everything possible to be believed is an image of truth. Hmm. Oh, I want to, but it's long, so I shan't. That concludes the end of, that concludes chapter 12. Sure does. So, what did we learn tonight? Well, let me go back. Let me go back. There is a wide difference between the will to resist an activity and the decision to change it. He who changes an activity acts. ACTS. Don't act a fool, so he acts. Whereas he who resists an activity reacts. One creates, the other perpetuates. So look into your life. Where are you resisting? And you see, we resist by way of that memory, you know. We resist by way of the memory. I can speak from experience because I have some family members who only see me in one way, and that's the way they've always seen me. They do not see me as I am now. They see me the way they've always seen me. Thus, every time I see them, there's going to be some kind of a, altercation because that's how they see me. That's how they see me. But I've learned something along the way. Even though, just like the man said, RK, when he said, I was holding my friend in that place, I was robbing him of his freedom by continually seeing him in a low light. Oh, you need more time, do you? Fine. You got problems. He was robbing him of being his full self, right? And because he was seeing him that way, he had to be that way. But there's something I've learned, and I'm still learning it, and I'm applying it diligently. Even though they see me in a particular way, because I know the principle, I will see myself the way I want to be. Thereby, as long as I see myself the way I want to be, and I believe myself as being such, meaning I rehearse in imagination what I would be doing in reality if I were the man or the woman I wanted to be, then they have to see me as I have become, thereby changing the way they see me. Right? So this is why when you resist something, oh, I don't want to be this anymore. I don't know how to change. You are looking at your problem. You are looking at your problem, and you've become like Lot's wife, frozen in time. Because the thing hypnotizes you all over again. It entrances you because that's what you're familiar with. So you continually do it. So you are entranced by it. Thus, you continually do it. That's what happens when you try and fight against something. You become transfixed. You're frozen there because you're looking at it. You're giving it your attention. Listen, this reminds me of the weeping angels on Doctor Who. The weeping angels, when you are looking at them, they do not move. But when you blink or you look away, oh, they move. Tripped out. Why did I tell you that? Because it's just a matter of when you're looking at something and it has your full attention, you're transfixed by it. Thereby, you keep perpetuating the problem of what you are fixated upon. But when you make a decision to say, you know, when somebody says, man, I was so tired of being sick and tired, and then bam, they just changed. Because internally, if you can imagine it for a moment, there's a fulcrum. What's a fulcrum? You know when you have a teeter totter or scales? I love when I go to the Chinese market and she's measuring out herbs. She just has this little scale in her hands and she moves the little thing, but she can feel when it moves. Like it's such a subtle thing and she can feel it. Well, within you is a scale, a pendulum, if you will, and it moves, right? Now, when that scale moves, something tips it. Something tips it to move in a particular direction. So when you change your mind, you change your attitude, you make a decision to change, you tip the scale. You tip the scale and you move yourself from looking at your problem to fully being face to face on your solution. And so when you do that, you've tipped the scales. Now you're not going to go back now. You've changed. And so that's why he's saying there is a wide difference between the will to resist an activity and the decision to change it. He who changes an activity, he acts, whereas he who resists an activity reacts. Think about re. It's a recurring. It means it happens over and over again. So you keep acting out the same way. This is why one creates to change internally, to tip the scale. Because the reason why I described it that way of tipping the scale, it is something that happens inside of you. You know, when you say, I looked at him and I didn't love him anymore. Or I looked at her and I didn't love her anymore. It's just something broke and I didn't anymore. Yeah, the change is so subtle when you feel it within you. So once you change, you now create a different situation. Whereas if you keep pushing against the old and fighting it, you keep perpetuating it. So here's the thing. You see, this is why I'm telling you, you can't apply force. You can't apply force to change the problem. To force a thing, you've got to be looking at it. You've got to be complaining about it. You've got to be trying to figure out how to break free. I want to break free, right? You got to be trying to figure out how to do that. But when you remember scripture that says, not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, it means you surrender to what? Surrender to the imagination of how you would like it to be. That is what you surrender to, because really and truly, it takes nothing to flop like a wet noodle onto your bed and go, what would I like my life to be like? Hmm. How would I be behaving if my life were as I wanted it to be? And this is tomorrow's lesson. The difference between visualization and rehearsal. So you want to show up for that one tomorrow. Let me tell you, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. On all platforms, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, fan base. You want to be here at 7 a.m. Eastern for the difference between visualization and rehearsal. You see, because when you surrender to the imagination, you become playful. What? Because you're going through all of the scenarios. You're going through all of the things that you would like to become. But as you go through all of the things you would like to become, one of them jumps out at you and says, ooh, ooh, this one. Like when you find the perfect flavor, when you find the perfect shoes to go with your outfit. You just have a eureka moment. Oprah Winfrey calls it an aha moment. So when you change on the inside, it is an aha moment. That is why you create your new experience. So you see, you don't do it by force. You do it by surrender. Sweet surrender, right? What's her name? McLaughlin? Yeah, you know. Here's my name drop. We had the same music teacher. Sarah McLaughlin, ow. Paul Brandt, yeah, if you know country music, you know what I'm talking about. Same music teacher in school, but I digress. That's another day. So, what are you going to do tonight as you slide into the silence for 5 minutes? Will you continually resist? But here's the reason why we resist, because of our memory, the memory of that thing. It is the memory of that thing and how it turned out that makes you say, well, it happened that way once, twice, 3 times a lady, right? It happened that many times. So, you know what? Mm, I think it's going to happen that way again. So, you stay in the memory. Wanting to change, but you stay in the memory. But when you say to yourself, you know what? Just like a lot of these people from the stories that we've read for these past couple of nights. The one man said, "Ooh, I was desperate, so I decided to try it. I was desperate." Another woman said the same thing. She says, "Neville, I got desperate, and I just decided to try what you said." What did we remember from last night's lecture? Thinking from the end, enacting the end creates reality. So tonight, as we slide into the silence for 5 minutes, what do you want to become? Or should I say, who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? Step two, see it in your mind's eye and play around with it. Bend it, mold it, shape it, in any which way you can, in your mind's eye. And one of those things that you bend and shape and move will feel most natural to you. For instance, if you would do the running man because you got that new job, you do the running man because that's what you would do naturally. If you would naturally call your girlfriend and say, "Girl," you would never guess what happened. Then do what you would do naturally, because then it takes on the tones of reality. And so when you rehearse in imagination what you would experience in reality, would then, oh, nobody has to force you, because you would stay there not by might or by power, but by your spirit. And you would imagine every day. And step three, immerse yourself in the feeling of its fulfillment. Why? Because you know that as within, so without. As I imagine it to be, it has to become. That's what you know. That's why you do what you do. But we trying to sweat the technique. We think it's a technique. No, it is your belief in your imaginal act that gives it life. So when you go into the silence for the next 5 minutes, you better believe in who you say you want to become. And as you say it, oh, you'll begin to see something in your mind's eye. You begin to see yourself and feel yourself rehearsing. And as you rehearse, oh, you will immerse yourself in the feeling of the reality of it, and you will say, well, Eureka, it is finished. And you don't have to look to the left or to the right to figure out when's it going to happen, because you will know what? Nothing is real beyond the imaginative patterns we make of it. Hmm? That last sentence says mental things are alone real. It's only the mental that is real. So get it right in your mental faculties, and then the physical faculty will confirm what you hold within. Hmm? So, step one, who do you want to become? Step two, well, then rehearse in imagination what you would be doing in reality if you became it. Because you'd be doing something and it will make you feel so good, so accomplished, so excited, so fascinated. You mean I just created my own experience? Yes, you did. That's step three. And do it for 5 minutes. Listen, if your mind wanders, because I see the dishes in the sink, but I told my son it's dishes for him tonight. Because you know how it is. I'm looking at the dishes and I'm feeling kind of uneasy. Don't worry about that. Bring your mind back. If you're thinking about the laundry and you got to sweep the floor, no, no, no. Bring the mind back to that rehearsal over and over and over again. How many times? 70 times 7. But who's counting, right? Let us slide into the silence for 5 minutes. There concludes our 5 minutes. Are there any questions before we go? Because I know last night, oh, they were beautiful questions. So we might as well, right? We might as well. No questions? Who's all here? Beloved Love Troll, I see you on Twitter. Hello. Shea Butter. Cyber. Ooh, Neville has a lecture all on acting versus reacting. Yeah, call the law. Ooh, I remember that lecture. Why, thank you, Cyber, because this chapter really was good. I really enjoyed this chapter. Oh, look, there's another namesake. Well, hello, Angela. Let's see. Let's see. And George, feel free to come on in. Um, someone spoke in Spanish, and no me gusta tú. Cuando era niño, tu mate a mi familia. Look, I get some of that. I get boy and family and whatever, but no me gusta. But you know what it is? I see you. What is your name? Anywho, can I see your name? What does this person say? The only way I could do that was if you had to do, what are they saying to me here? Um, I have no idea. But yeah. Are there any questions, Miss Charms? Hello, really? Any questions based upon what we read tonight from chapter 12 of the Law and the Promise? Because for some of you who don't know what we do here, especially on fan base, because I see the new faces in the space, this every night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I read either a lecture by Neville Goddard or one of his books. And we are on the Law and the Promise on chapter 12. And if you don't know who Neville Goddard is, well, Neville Goddard was a Bajan. I am a Bajan, but I digress, Barbadian. And he's known as the world's greatest mystic. But you see, that can be misleading and make you think of things like magic. But what he actually was, he practiced the principles of creation, mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Those principles govern all of creation. There's no give with them. There's no coercion with them. Here's, we've heard scriptures say, you must reap what you've sown. Well, obviously, if you go out and you plant corn, which allegedly is my favorite, I don't know, but it is for some reason. You plant corn, what is your expectation? Is your expectation peas? Because you didn't plant peas. So a lot of people think because you reap what you sow, well, that's just nature. It goes by way of your mind, right? Is there a question?
Hello.
Hi, sweetness.
Hi. How are you?
Well, and yourself?
Good. I'm new to fan base, kind of like going on to the second week. So I'm just listening to what's going on and stuff.
Oh, well. It is a pleasure to meet you, and I see that you're Canadian as well. Hey, girl.
Hey.
Are you out east?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I am out west.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it is good to see you. Very good to see you, my fellow Canadian.
nice.
I know, right? We Canadians, we run things, but I digress. Allegedly, we're becoming the 51st state, but that's another story. That's another day. But
Oh, allegedly.
allegedly, so we don't know. But the point tonight is this to remember. Because I like to give you examples, real life examples. You ever thought of somebody and they called you and you say, oh my God, what a coincidence? It's not a coincidence. There are no coincidences. The definition of a coincidence is this: The external experience that corresponds to your internal thought or feeling. That is a coincidence. So the internal must always match the external. And to change the external, we never go there first. As Neville so brilliantly puts it, he says you cannot break the mirror to change your face. If you don't like the colors in your outfit, what are you going to do? Break the mirror, bust it to pieces, rip your clothes to shreds? No, because that's the external. Nah, get in your mind's eye. What would you prefer to be wearing? And then you put that on, and then the image on the outside has changed because you have changed. So that's why it tells you. Let me see if I can flip back over here and read it to you because that's that chapter. He says there is a wide difference between the will to resist an activity and the decision to change it. So he who changes an activity acts, whereas he who resists an activity reacts. One creates, the other perpetuates. So you see, at any given time in our lives, you and I are making the decisions. And oh, I know it looks like sometimes we've been shafted or we got the short end of the stick. Whether you read scripture or not is irrelevant. The principles are in scripture, right? That's just where they are. Because where did we first learn reaping and sowing? Scripture. And as long as the earth remains, there'll be seed time and harvest, is what we're told. Yes, that's scripture, obviously. So even the way you go to bed at night, the thoughts you go to bed with, or in other words, the mood you fall asleep in. That's why this room, that's why I come here every night at 10 p.m. at bedtime. I ain't gonna keep you long because I gotta eat my supper. I fed my son already, but I gotta eat. I know it's late, but like that ever stopped me. But I digress. The mood that you fall asleep in influences your dreams, and it influences your mood and your thoughts for the following day. So you see, the mood that you are always in all the time, your habitual mood, well, that's where your thoughts will be. That's where your words will be. And that's where your actions will also be because of that predominant mood. Now, I'm not trying to be right. I'm not trying to be wrong. I'm simply saying examine yourself and look at your life, and you will see. You'll see it. And when you see it, that's what will happen. You know why? Because then you've just seen what's been keeping you stuck. Oh my God, why do I do this all the time? Why does this always happen to me? That's your cue. That is showing you what has kept you stuck this whole time. You see, that is the grace of quote unquote God. Why? Because you're not supposed to be stuck in a rut. God wants you free. But again, if I say the word God and you clutch your pearls, don't worry about it. You'll get past it. It's just because we have a distorted view of God. I'm not talking about anything outside of you. God gave you what you needed on the inside. So we have to use it now. So what do you want to become? Who do you want to become? This is where, and I will land here. Who do you want to become? That's always the first question because that's the principle of mentalism. Who you say you are, I am. So who do you want to become? You got to make that choice. I remember I always tell you I'm not asking you if you think it's possible or if you think your mother will like it or your father will like it. This is not about anybody but you. Who would you like to become? When you answer that question, now it'll make an image flash in your mind or thoughts flash in your mind because that's the natural progression of things. And as that thought flashes in your mind, you begin to see yourself in that very thing you said you want to become. The very person you want to become, you see it in your mind's eye. Well, then, rehearse what you would be doing if you became it. If you had to give a speech, are you going to visualize? Nah, you're not watching George give the speech. You were the one giving the speech, but that's tomorrow's lesson. So you experience or rehearse in imagination what you would be doing if you became the man or the woman you said you wanted to be. But then something happens to you in step 3 because it's just a natural progression. Like a seed sprouts roots, and then it sprouts shoots, and then it sprouts blossoms, and then it brings forth fruit. It happens naturally. So once you say who you want to become, and you begin to see it in your mind's eye, well, then naturally you will begin to feel and believe the reality and the truth of it naturally. And that is what makes it happen. Dovey, yes.
I do have a quick little question. What happens if you are flooded with negative images within your mind that are not originated from you?
What if you are flooded with negative images that haven't originated from you? Well, to know that they haven't originated from you means you have to acknowledge the fact that you have been mentally impregnated by the view of someone else. That's the first step. Because you just said, well, they're not mine. So then what did you allow your mind, the fertile soul of your mind, to become penetrated by? So in order to change that, you now get to say, okay, whoa, that's not mine. That's not who I want to be. And you redirect. You redirect your mood towards what you want to be instead of allowing the mood of someone else to mentally impregnate you. So kudos to recognizing when something is yours and when it is not. But the moment you recognize that it isn't yours, then you have to ask yourself, why am I out here in these streets allowing myself to become mentally impregnated by certain things? Does that make sense? Hmm. More questions? So that's all there is, really. So how do you want to go to bed tonight? You want to go to bed listening to the tragedies of the world? Because let me tell you something, you allow the fertile soil of your mind to become mentally impregnated by tragedy, as within, so without. So what do you want to become mentally impregnated by? You better be something you want to give birth to. So you see, that's the beauty of what we've been given. That's what you call grace. Everybody has the capacity and the capability to do it if we would simply apply the principles. So I will close with this. Step one, who do you want to become? Begin to rehearse in imagination what you would be doing if you became it. And step three, allow the feeling of knowing that it is done. But Angela, what if I still doubt? It is natural. But when you doubt, you're looking back at memories of the way things unfolded. And when you look back at the memories, you reenact them. So this is why you go to the imagination, so you can create that. You see the difference? Hmm. Just allow yourself to be immersed in that sensation and fall asleep in that. Don't ask me how long you're supposed to fall asleep in it, because you don't ever ask that question when you go to bed mad. How long am I supposed to fall asleep mad before I get up and argue in the morning? Nobody ever asks that question. But if I say to you, fall asleep in a state of the wish fulfillment, feel good, you gonna ask me, how long should I do it till I see a result? You know what keeps you there to do it without watching the pot? The love of becoming it. That's what keeps you there, so that you lose all sense of time. They tell you time flies when you're having fun. You never realize how long you spent doing something because you're totally enraptured with it. Well, then that is what you do in this situation. The thing, the person that you want to become holds your attention so much that you don't deviate to the left, you don't deviate to the right, you don't ask, are we there yet? You just know. And you hold fast to one thing. As within, so without. I believe in the reality of who I say I am. And I am in the seed stage. And you begin to watch yourself and you realize when you become the root stage, because it's taken root in you now, yes? And then from the roots out comes the shoot towards the sun to warm you, nurture you, nourish you, to make you grow. You're always going through the stages Take pleasure in the stage that you're going through along the line of your desire. That's how you fall asleep at night. Anywho, listen, don't. This is supposed to be bedtime. Oh, Mr. Monkey asked me, do you believe in Jesus? No, Mr. Monkey, I believe as Jesus. Because as Paul says, do you not know that Jesus is within you? He's in me, in my bosom. That's where your heart is, by the way. That's where he is. Not outside of me, not separate from me, but greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world, right? So, anywho, whew, it is bedtime and I'm trying not to get worked up, but it might be a little late for that. I'm already fired up. So, this is the mood I will go to bed in. But I love you all. And I'll see you on the morrow, tomorrow, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Fanbase, on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. And we're going to talk about the difference between visualization and rehearsal. Oh, oh. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So you know I love you. And if you have questions that I haven't answered here tonight, not because I know everything, because I know nothing other than the principles, but I know nothing. When those words are put upon my tongue, I speak them, right? I ain't nobody. I just use what I got. So if you want to slide into my DMs and ask me a question, feel free to do so, and I will respond. Countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Much love to you, beloved love troll, and thank you for spending this evening with me here on Twitter. I'll see ya. Ow. YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Mr. Monkey, Shay, Butter, Cyber, Bewee, Ow. I see you all, and for those whose name I can't pronounce or see, I see you too. I love you.